right, everyone. Wow, what a day, huh? Great, great day. Are you excited about Christmas at Central? I got to tell you, there are so many people putting so much effort into that. I was talking to Hayden Paninsky on Friday. They were going to be here working late on some stuff. I said, what time you going home? He said, probably sometime on Sunday, is what he said to me. So I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. As John said, we are continuing on with this Between the Pines sermon series. And if you've been here over the last several weeks, then you know that that's kind of a play on words. It's mimicking the phrase between the lines. And our hope in this series is just this, that we can kind of pull back those pine branches and peek a little bit deeper, not just the stuff on the outside, but look deeper and see some of the maybe less talked about, less obvious truths about the birth of Jesus. And so today, I'm excited to share this message with you and our focus. Let me tell you where we're headed. We're going to focus on the Wisemen, and in particular, we're going to look at how they were searching and seeking to find Jesus. Now, you may not be familiar with the name Martin Handford, but I suspect that most of you are familiar with his work. In the 1980s, Handford set out to create this picture book, and it would be a picture book of like artistic or hand-drawn crowd scenes. But Handford and his team decided that they wanted to make this book interactive. So here's what they did. They added a character, actually the same character, to each page of the book that people could then in turn search for. And you and I now know this as, where's Waldo? Right, and it was like a huge, huge success. Sold like, I don't know, like more than 70 million copies. But I do have some sad news about Waldo that I need to share with you. Waldo apparently got a hold of one of his own books, and now he's in therapy trying to find himself. No, but those books have been like a huge success. And my question is this: why? I mean, why would a book with such a simplistic concept? I mean, it's nothing more than crowds of people, one of whom is wearing a red, white hat and funny glasses. Why would those books be so successful? And I think the answer is this: is there something about searching and seeking that just piques our interest? I mean, there's something in us that is just drawn to this idea of searching and seeking. And maybe it's because if we would stop and think about it, what we would realize is that our life is a whole lot about searching and seeking. And let me give you just a few examples to illustrate what I'm talking about. So you get up in the morning and you go into the kitchen, you open up the cabinets, and you search for something to eat for breakfast. Then you go into your closet and you search for something to wear that day. You search for your glasses. You search for your keys. You search for your cell phone. In fact, we search for our cell phones so much that Apple put a button on my watch that I can select, and when I do, my phone beeps as if to raise its hand and say, "Yoo-hoo, I'm over here, James," right? I mean, we search for so many things. That's just a few of them, and it's all before we even leave the house in the morning. We even instill this idea of searching and seeking in our kids. When we play the game, at the very youngest of age, we play the game with them, hide and seek, right? And as adults, it's true that we search for trivial, maybe insignificant things like the TV remote or our favorite coffee creamer at the grocery store. But we also search for things that have a much deeper impact, a much deeper meaning. You see, I think all of us in our lives search for things like love. We just want to be loved by others. We want joy. We search for joy. I mean, we just want to be happy in this world. Or peace in a world that is full of craziness and anxiety. We just want peace. And so we search for peace. In fact, I did a a Google search as I was preparing for this, and I searched for what is it that people seek most in life. And those three things, love, joy, and peace, you'd be shocked. Those three things were a combination, one, two, or all three of them were on almost every single list that I looked at. And hear this, the world that we live in will scream at us that we should find these deep needs of love and joy and peace, that we find them in our careers or in the money we make or in the house, the cars, the stuff we buy. I mean, if you get a good enough job, you make enough money, and you buy enough good stuff, then love, joy, and peace will naturally follow along. But the wise men in the Christmas story teach us a different example. They teach us a very different lesson. I want to read a little bit of their story to you today. We're just going to read a few verses of their story. And their story is found in Matthew chapter 2. And I'm going to start in verse 1. Listen as I read these words. It says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. And about that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, so they're searching, where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. So as we kind of process that, here's what's going on. We have some wise men that would have traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles, and it wouldn't have been easy miles. It would have been difficult, challenging miles, most likely traveling by camel, but maybe even by foot. And their whole purpose for traveling, their whole purpose for coming was because they were searching and seeking a newborn king, Jesus. Well, they make it to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem they're told, well, this newborn king, the prophets say that he is to be born in Bethlehem. So they continue on with their searching. They continue on with their travels to Bethlehem, and it's there that they find Mary and Jesus. And this is how that encounter unfolds. This is what it says. Verse 11 of Matthew chapter 2. It says, they entered the house, and they saw the child with his mother Mary, the child being Jesus, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. So think through this with me. These wise men have traveled hundreds of, it would have been challenging miles, hundreds of challenging miles. And they finally found what they had been desperately searching and seeking after. And all they could do was fall to their knees and worship. And in humbling themselves in silent worship, they shouted a message to you and to me and to all people of all times. And the message is this, that we have found what everyone is seeking and searching for. And the Between the Pines lesson that we learn from the wise men is just that Jesus is the answer to what we seek in this life. And love and joy and peace, they will elude us when we seek them in something other than Jesus. But when we choose to seek Jesus, what Galatians chapter 5 tells us is the fruit that the Holy Spirit produces within us is just exactly what we've been searching for. Because the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and a host of other amazing things. Well, there's another lesson that I think we need to learn today, another Between the Pines lesson we need to learn today, because there's no doubt, we look at the wise men, and they came searching and seeking after Jesus. But get this, the real Christmas story is this, that Jesus came seeking us. Luke chapter 19, verse 10 says it this way. It says, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. You see, God did not want heaven without you or without me, and so he sent his Son to this earth to seek and to save us. In Luke chapter 15, Jesus is all grown up. He's well into his ministry, and he tells 3 parables, 3 stories to illustrate this point, to drive home this point, that the reason that he came to this earth was to seek after us. Now, maybe the most well-known, maybe the most well-known of the three stories that Jesus tells is the story of the prodigal son. It's a story about a father who has two sons. One of the sons comes to his father and asks for his inheritance early. Now, it would have been, you got to understand, this would have been like a brutally callous and uncaring demand that he would have made of his father, almost as if he was saying, Dad, I wish you were dead so that I could get your money. And it would be like turning his back on his father and walking away. Well, nevertheless, the father gives the son his money and he leaves. And we know that he wastes that money away. He squanders that money. And he really has no other option but to go back home. And he does, not sure how his father will react. But this is how that all took place. The reunion took place. Listen to this. This is so good. Luke chapter 15, verse 20, it says, so he being the son, returned home to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. You know what that means? It means his father was looking for him. He was anticipating. He was searching for his son. And while he was still a long way off, this father is filled with compassion, and he ran to his son, and he embraced him, and he kissed him. The father ran after his son in spite of what the son had previously done, walking away from the father. Now, there's a second story, and it's about a shepherd that has 100 sheep. One of the sheep goes missing. And think through this with me, okay? This makes sense when we think about it. Now, a sheep does not have the capacity to, like the prodigal son, it doesn't have the capacity to say, you know what? I'm tired of the flock. I'm tired of the shepherd. I'm out of here. Right? It just wandered off. It must have, I don't know, maybe it saw some greener grass and it went over to graze on that grass. Maybe it just was distracted. Maybe it wasn't paying attention when the rest of the flock moved on to go graze somewhere else. But before long, this sheep looks up and the shepherd and the rest of the flock are nowhere to be found. When the shepherd realizes that one of his sheep is missing, this is what he does. It says, won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and search for that one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. You see, this is what this means, that the shepherd is not willing to let even one sheep be gone. He does not want anyone to, he will seek and search after every sheep. Every single one is important to the shepherd. Now, there's a final story in Luke 15, and it's about a woman who has 10 coins. And one of those coins gets lost. It gets misplaced. And again, I ask you to think through this with me a little bit. Use logic here. A coin, unlike the son and unlike the sheep, a coin can't walk away. A coin can't even wander off. It was just misplaced, and to be quite honest, really at no fault of the coin. And when the woman realizes that this coin is gone, she does this. Luke chapter 15, verse 8, it says, won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call her friends and her neighbors, and she will say, rejoice with me because I have found my lost coin. She tears the house apart looking for that lost coin. Now, let's process it. Jesus tells three, not one, not two, but three stories because he wants to emphasize the fact that he will tirelessly search and seek after you. He will never stop seeking after you. And this is true whether you're like the son and you have the prodigal son and you have chosen to walk away from your heavenly Father. Maybe you you said you didn't want anything to do with God and his church and you walked away. He will still continue to seek and search after you. Or maybe you're like the sheep You just didn't pay attention and you wandered off. I don't know. Maybe you missed church at a time or two, and before long it soon became habit. Maybe you chased after something. You saw some greener grass and you chased after it. And before you knew it, you wake up one morning and you realize that you are nowhere close to God and His church. Or maybe you're like the coin, and you've just been misplaced in this life. You grew up in a family that was maybe far from God. In fact, the only mention of God in your family is when it was used in a cuss word. Maybe you just felt far from Him. You've been misplaced. God, just know this, that the result is that God will seek after you, no matter who you are, no matter your situation, no matter what. He will never stop seeking after you. Francis Thompson is a guy that was born a long time ago, 1859. He was born in England. His dad was a doctor, and his parents wanted him to go to medical school like his dad. And so he did, but he would later drop out of school and because he wanted to pursue his true love of writing and poetry, and so he moved to London to do that. But he ran into some health issues, and as he sought treatment for it, it actually left him addicted to opium. And that took his life down a huge downward spiral. He became homeless, and even at his lowest point, even contemplated suicide. But during this time of hunger and hopelessness is when he was most able to see God. God brought people into his life, and Thompson recovered from his addiction, and he became a well-known and highly respected poet. And he wrote a poem then about this most difficult and challenging time in his life. The poem is called The Hound of Heaven. I want to read a portion of that poem. It's a modern day rendition of that poem. And I ask you just listen closely to this poem. It says, I heard a story once, an incredible story, an amazing story. It told of one who is relentlessly faithful and loves with unwavering love. It was said that he sorrows over broken people. It is said that he will tirelessly pursue each lost one, never stopping and never giving up. But if I let him in, what would I have to give up? What would I have left that I could call my own? And so I fled. I chose the surest method and the swiftest means, and I fled. I traveled down endless miles looking for escape. I fled. I sought refuge in forbidden pleasures, and I tried to drown out his footsteps. And the more I fed my desires, the more they consumed me. Each declared that it was worthy of any price. And the cost was everything I had. On and on I fled, and on, his relentless pursuit. Confused and overwhelmed, I fell to my knees. All I had tried had been a waste of time, a waste of energy, and a waste of hope. Nothing I had fled to had ever provided the comfort that I had sought. My strength was gone, and all that remained were the broken pieces and the shattered dreams. I turned at last to the final escape, the final flight of complete oblivion. No more dawns, no more struggles, no more thinking. I would just sleep, and wake no more. But then, in utter desolation, like a gentle breeze that washed over and around me, I felt his tenderness, the tenderness of his presence, and I had no fight left, so I finally listened. Which of those that you fled to loved you, I heard him say, and my heart answered, none but you, only you. And then he said to me, you will have no rest until you rest in me. Come and take my hand and rise. And in the darkness of my gloom, I saw his outstretched hand, and I heard these words, though you would not see it, I am the one that you have been seeking all your life. And in that moment, after all the endless miles and all the fruitless searching, I finally quit my running and I reached out to the one who had sought me for so long. The lost one was finally found, and he required nothing beyond my acceptance. And the peace that I had longed for but had never known, it flooded my heart. And in having nothing of my own, nothing but his love, I found everything that I had lacked. And I was finally complete. I was finally at rest in him. So please hear this. Maybe you have been misplaced in this life. Maybe you have wandered away. Maybe you have chosen to walk away. Hear this. He will never stop seeking after you. And you will never have rest until you rest in him. And I want to end with this one final verse that just ties this whole message together. I mean, it's true. It is true that he will never, ever stop seeking after you or me. But like the wise men, we too must seek after him. That's why Jeremiah 29:13 says this: you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. See, the way that we find Jesus and the love and the joy and the hope and the rest that comes in a relationship with him is when we seek after him with all of our heart. And if we're not fully experiencing all of those wonderful things, then maybe, just maybe, it's because we're not seeking after him with all of our heart. But know this as well. The one who left the beauty and the splendor and the glory of heaven to be born of a virgin here on this earth, and then he walked the agonizing and the painful road that led to a cross, 3 nails, and a crown of thorns. And he did it all because he was seeking and chasing after you. Don't you know he is worthy? He is so worthy of so much more than half-hearted seeking on our part. He deserves all of our heart. And so we want to end today by praying together. And we invite you to these steps to come and pray, and even encourage you to come and pray. You can pray about anything, any problem or concern that you may be facing. You can offer up praises of thanksgiving as well. But maybe today, you just want to come and say thanks for never giving up on me, for always seeking me. Maybe you want to come and pray and say, God, open my eyes how I can seek you with all of my heart. You come and you pray as we stand and sing this song.